Okay, podcast family, I'm so excited for our today's latest guest, an old friend, a homie in these streets and in the art world, Maddie Mo, aka the most famous artist. Maddie, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure to be here. We tried to do this about a year ago and it didn't work out. So here we are.
Yeah,
All in the right timing.
it's so true. Persistence is so valuable. And I'm so excited because I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask you a bunch of the same questions, but like where I like to go on this podcast is really, we got to take it way back, way, way back to your childhood and, what set you on the artistic path, if you don't mind indulging me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about like my childhood wounds and what made me such a black sheep. Because clearly that's what happened,
Oh,
whether I
oh,
um I haven't pinpointed it yet. I think generally speaking,
ayahuasca, you're going to do some fucking, what is that? Psychedelic therapy and really dig into it or what?
no, I'm actually going to go to this place called the Hoffman Institute in February. Have you heard of that?
Dude, everybody's talking about it, but the first rule of Hoffman is nobody talks about Hoffman.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect. I just know that it's you know, a deep reflective experience unplugged and forces you to kind of figure out what is going on with you as a result of your childhood wounds.
Yeah, I need it. I think I might. I know a couple people who've gone and rave reviews.
Same. And I mean, you should sign up now. It's a pretty long wait list. I signed up like middle of this year, and I'm going to go in February. Yeah, so my childhood. I mean, there was a couple highlights. My grandmother on my mom's side was a painter, so I
Okay.
kind of grew up. Um, Although we weren't like extremely close to her and didn't spend a ton of time because she was off in like Hawaii and Fiji and Tahiti painting during most of
Oh,
my childhood. Um,
where did you grow up?
Born on the East Coast, brother born on the West Coast, grew up in the South and then the Southwest, like San Diego area, and then have lived and worked in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and abroad in some big cities.
Wow.
So one thing that kind of, I guess, in reflecting on that, one thing that informed my childhood was like we moved around a lot. My dad was like working and starting businesses or working for people and moving around. And whenever I tell people like, we moved every couple of years, they ask if I was a military kid, and that wasn't the case. I was like an entrepreneur's kid. And
Wow.
I suppose that like forced me to reinvent myself over and over again. Like each time I entered a new school, from like elementary school to middle school was a different school in a different area. From middle school to high school, different school in a different area.
Wow.
Um, you kind of get to show up as whatever you want to be and kind of form your identity and use like the foundational experiences you've had along the way to kind of put your best foot forward. And I'd say that's kind of informed my art practice. It's a constant journey of reinvention. I've never really made the same thing for too long. I think a lot of artists get stuck in this like it's working in the market, my gallerists are supporting it, my collectors are buying it, so I have to make it forever. And that really puts you in a box and can get pretty monotonous. And actually I've seen a lot of artists communicate to me how like bored they are with their practice.
Wow.
So the willingness to like move and reinvent, or like the experience of moving and reinventing, allowed me in my art practice to kind of reinvent myself over and over again without much fear of failure, just knowing that I'll figure it out. So that was one experience. The grandmother painting kind of like made it made it acceptable, but also kind of like a little bit in the way that like my grandmother was perceived within the family, like a little crazy. It was like acceptable to be a painter, but it was also a little crazy to like move to Tahiti and paint local people for the last 2 decades of your life.
What was her style of painting?
She painted these like beautiful watercolors of landscapes and fruit and people, and I have a ton of them in my studio.
Dude.
Her career never really took off. But she loved it. And every time we'd go visit, like I specifically remember this time visiting her in Hawaii and eating like raw tuna, sashimi that we went down to the market and got, and then like watercoloring, drawing with pencil, and then watercoloring in this like landscape in her backyard and thinking like that was super fun.
That's
Uh,
living.
that is living, but that was like my middle school years. And then in high school, I got oriented around like if you don't make money and succeed, you're a failure and you have to like figure your life out and get into the best college and build businesses or else you're fucked. And so that like early experience didn't really come into my life until around like 2014 when I kicked off my art career.
Wow.
Around, I guess I was around like 28 years old.
Okay, so let's hear like very high level the path to that.
Yeah, I mean, I, so I just turned 40 this year and I've been thinking a lot about like the decade or so I've been making art and how my experiences have informed my art. Because like ultimately art is a reflection of your point of view and it's a reflection of your willingness to like learn a skill set and practice that skill in order to create a tangible output.
Hmm.
And those inputs, which are your lived experiences, so much inform the output. The middle layer, which is like the processing, uh, is informed by your character. Like, are you willing to learn new things? Are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to push yourself? Do you have a commitment to a practice?
Hmm.
And so those two variables, the inputs and the process, are the things that like I'm reflecting on because that ultimately informs the output. And so the inputs that I've had, the experiences I've had, started out with like, okay, this viewing artist as like the black sheep and somewhat acceptable, but also like a really beautiful life, but not very stable. The moving around and then going to school to specifically like figure out how to make money informed my entire art practice. And
Wow.
going to school and figuring out how to make money coincided with like the luck and timing of the world I was in and the place I was at, like the geography I was at when I was in school trying to make a career.
And were you studying the greats of artistes, like history and, what was your other like
I
amazing inspo?
Yeah, not until I became an artist, like I didn't care about culture all the way to like 2013, 2014. I didn't travel to go see museums. I didn't go to art galleries. I was just like obsessed with status games. Like, can I go to the best restaurant and take a picture and post it on Instagram in like 2009,
Uh-huh.
10, 11? Can I travel the world and visit like the biggest, coolest marketing agencies and show that like I've been there? And that was all a status game.
Were those status games like what was that status going to get you? Notoriety, chicks, money, or like you wanted the status for the status itself, like validation?
I think it was partially validation and comes from my own wounds and insecurities for sure.
Wow.
It was also this like realization that with a network you get leverage and optionality. And so the status game between like graduating college or like even in college, 2004-ish, all the way to like 2012-ish, I was trying to build like my LinkedIn network. I was trying to make sure that like I was at the venture capital things. And so some context, went to school at Stanford,
You
studied
went to
communication.
Stanford. Holy guacamole.
You knew this. You you just
It's still equally as impressive every time I hear it. Don't call me out.
yeah, went to Stanford, wear the hat, remind everyone because I want everyone to know I'm super smart.
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually makes me smart that I have to signal I'm smart by wearing the hat, but whatever.
Yes. Well, by golly, you earned it. It's fucking not easy.
It was not easy. Um, while I was there, like all these new platforms emerged. Web 2.0 emerged, if you will, like social networking, mobile phones, user generated content. So YouTube, the iPhone, Facebook, and
And all the
the
professors are like angel investors and also like incredible entrepreneurs, from what I understand, also.
and starting their own classes around these different platforms. And that was kind of my introduction to business and my introduction to like Web 2.0. And the underpinning of all of those platforms is advertising. That's how the Web 2.0 world operated. And so I kind of found myself in the advertising, internet advertising world right out of college and built some businesses in that space. And the lessons learned and like how to write a headline and put it next to an image and get someone to click it and convert in a user funnel and arbitrage that sale, meaning spend less on getting the person to your sale page and making the sale than the money, the cost of goods and the cost of marketing and making a profit was the thing that I was like doing.
Yeah.
And so
is there a fundamental just for that like a fundamental rule on that, like, to appeal to the human for a clickbait, like, is it always just like selling some subconscious sex thing, or like how do you get someone to click roughly?
it's psychology. It's like fear, greed, vanity, like all of the triggers that get people to buy. Like appeal to rich people, safety, appeal to poor people, greed, appeal to women, vanity.
Yo, this is why the art world is like the most incredible.
Why is that?
because you can reflect on these sort of things as opposed to needing to uh act upon them.
Right.
Cleaner.
It's a safe space to make statements about the fucked up things happening in our world in a way that can connect with a lot of people, and that's why I like art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that the art world, though, confuses a lot of artists, and it's kind of like the NBA for a young basketball player. It's like, yes, the status symbol or the pinnacle of the career is to play in the NBA. But my view is like it's okay to just enjoy the sport and play a pickup game with your friends and have that as a hobby and have a fulfilling life as a result of that. And I'm practicing my art in that latter model, which is like I do what inspires me. I make a living a bunch of different ways, and I make art when I feel like deeply inspired to say something or make something. And that allows me to escape from this trap lots of artists fall into, which is making for the sake of maintaining your burn, which is necessitated by growing the scale of your operation, which is ultimately held together by a loose network of galleries and collectors who at any time could decide you're no longer in vogue.
Well, that is also something that I like to reflect on this podcast, which is called Primary Market, because ultimately, like, I want to dissect what it is that makes a market, what it is that makes work collectible, and then how much like genius or uh, lasting relevance in art history is part of like the importance of what you're creating.
So when I was first getting started, I didn't have a style and I didn't have any technical capabilities. And my job was
Purely conceptual.
my job was to develop a style and develop technical capabilities. And so we'll talk about style first. Like the art world and art history has a whole bunch of like visual aesthetics, whether it's Damien Hirst polka dots or Jeff Koons balloon animals or Kaz's cartoons that are neatly drawn with neon colors. Like there are a bunch of accepted styles that are so overpriced or outpriced of the general market or the aspiring collector that those aspiring collectors are willing to buy like some kind of derivative that signals to the people walking into their house and viewing their collection they have taste and maybe they're early to something new, And so that was one of the tactics I employed in kind of like figuring out my aesthetic. Is like, why invent something from scratch? Look at the things that are already working in the market, create derivatives of them that allow people to collect what feels familiar, because familiarity doesn't make you feel like you made the wrong decision. Even if you did buy an overpriced painting, you can make up the story to yourself that like, oh, but it like fits into the canon this way and da 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 da.
It's that ties into what Virgil Abloh used to say about like clothing. Like you should only make an edit like on what you're creating, like just a tiny bit to make it your own, because people like are basically not ready for something entirely new.
Yeah, I mean, the we live in this algorithmic culture where everyone kind of sees the same thing, and that creates monoculture. And in order to appeal to monoculture, you have to fit your work into that like that prevailing narrative with like a little flavor twist.
Yeah. But it's really true. It's scary. But like also a lot of collectors though, like at the bleeding edge of like wanting to collect. Like we just interviewed some incredible, uh, an incredible couple a couple weeks ago who have an art residency, and their perspective is um, their perspective is like we don't even want to understand the work. Like if we get it, like it's fucking already done. And so like, but you know, those works are not trading for any freaking dinero.
The other point is that your art collectors are people that want to be in the lives of interesting, inspiring people. And so another part of your work, outside of like aesthetically making it work and telling the correct story or building the right narrative, being the type of person that people with money want to have at their dinner parties is also important.
Whoa. Wow. Um, so like, you're, dude, you forced some motherfucker to explore some really interesting things.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, like if you're an artist and you're like an outcast in today's world and you're really difficult to communicate with and you're a huge asshole, unless your work is already trading and highly sought after, you're doing yourself a disservice to the people that potentially want to support your career. Because ultimately, like artists are effectively like they're either financial instruments, they're stocks that people trade, or they're charities that people like give money to allow them to continue to do their thing, so that the artist keeps showing up and brings this like little enrichment to that collector's life. And that could be as simple as you pay me for a painting so that when you're in town, you can call me up and go out to dinner with your friends and show them you know a cool artist friend, and then maybe have drinks after at the studio and create this like unique experience for the collector and their friends.
so do you think that this formula can be like written and followed, like for emerging artists, like to build a career for themselves or like monetize their work?
I think that the tactics and strategies used to build a career as an artist are constantly evolving. I'm only speaking from my own experience. And if I was to launch an art career today, it might look fundamentally different than the career I built over the last decade. And all I'm doing is sharing like what worked for me over the last decade and the epiphanies I had. But those may not work today, and they probably won't work tomorrow as the world continues to change.
I don't know. Humans are humans, you know. Machiavelli, like principles, are like kind of falling into like what you're saying, and like I
Well,
thank you for being so candid for sharing this stuff. It's really
here's what's
astonishing.
changing about the art market. There's a K-shaped economy happening. I think that's how you do it, where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So those middle class collectors that you would have launched your career with in like 2015 on Instagram that are new to collecting art, that'll buy $1,000, $2,000 painting, they may not exist in the next few years.
Dude, yet another panic attack. But then also, so then how do you spread the word about the importance of art? Like, or
Art will continue to spread its own word about the importance of art, and certain people will think it's important at different times based on their own agenda. And so the collectors of, let's call it the Gilded Age or the Industrial Revolution, had fundamentally different aesthetic preferences and cultural sensibilities and kind of motives for collecting work. The
what would
new
you say?
class,
Like, like J.P. Morgan, fucking, or Frick,
I mean, it was a financial instrument, it was a status instrument, um, and in many cases, a bargaining chip that those folks could
hold on one
use.
second. I'm
Yep,
so sorry.
sure.
Someone's been hammering.
All good. We've got a turf emergency. It seems like.
So what? I'm just in the middle of a phone call. You can just put it right over here.
I have one more, so I'll just go.
Oh, yeah, make yourself at home. It's a turf delivery, of course. So, okay, sorry.
No worries. Turf delivery. How much turf do you get?
Just some samples. You can see
Okay, fair enough. Nice.
feels like 2 little rolls.
Sweet.
Okay,
So I think what's
really
happening
ringing
now.
my bells here.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Okay, so people are people and they're not going to change, but the types of collectors and their motives change over time, I think is the key point. And tracking who the collectors are and what their motivations for collecting are will inform, in theory, if you want to find product market fit, the type of work you should be making.
I don't fully understand. So, okay, yeah, maybe the aesthetic changes, but you're saying that the game changes.
The game does change. So the the Rockefellers, they'd build buildings with their names on them.
Mm-hmm.
The Zuckerbergs build hospitals and with their name on them and bunkers in Hawaii. The dollars that these rich folks are allocating signal what they value.
Yes.
And in the past, in a world where the Industrial Revolution was happening and the financial markets were being born and everything was exciting, collecting expensive works and putting them in museums in big cities was like the pinnacle of signaling that you're like on it and you're a contributor and you shouldn't be eaten by the plebes.
Oh,
The new
God.
the new wealthy folks, it's yet to be determined. The wealth is transferring so quickly to like the chip manufacturers, the AI entrepreneurs, and we don't know what their motives yet are for what they want to signal to the world and how they're investing in cultural production.
Sam Altman is dropping 20 mil, 30 mil on cars. That's
Exactly.
It's very one-dimensional. So I feel like maybe San Francisco or the Bay has an art problem.
Yes, but they are still collecting interesting things. They're just interested in different things. Like I know for sure there's a whole bunch of billionaires in the Bay that are super interested in big art and Burning Man art.
Okay, yeah.
Now, 5 years ago, that wasn't interesting to many people. I mean, Burning Man art still existed, big art still existed, but it wasn't being collected or placed in municipalities at the rate it is today. And so if you're an artist and you're realizing that the people who invest in art are interested in big art, the example is shift your practice to making big art. So it's like it's trend spotting what the wealth are purchasing to signal their agenda and then making art as a reflection of that if you care about product market fit. And I'll leave you with that caveat. If you care about product market fit and you're reliant on those types of individuals to fund your practice. Now there's this whole other world where you set up an Etsy shop and you have like a little digital course and you have an Instagram that sells like $500 paintings and you have a TikTok that generates income and you have a YouTube and you're doing other things and you have this like distributed stream of income coming in as an artist that can also give you the freedom to do whatever you want. And so we're talking about two different art worlds.
Definitely. But what I'm interested in is like, pushing the definition of what art is for humanity and like what is going to emerge throughout, the sands of time as important.
I mean, what art is for humans is like a cathartic exercise in making with your hands that brings you back into the present, that allows you to spend time and produce something that represents a whole bunch of different things and meaning make in your life.
But like, does just a purely conceptual piece fall into that category, or like,
If it stimulates you, you spend time on it, and this is from the artist's perspective.
Yeah, that's what I want, baby.
You're spending your time practicing a craft or building something or making something that shares your point of view, and you put it out in the world. For an artist, that should be enough. If you want to make a career out of it, you have to be a little bit more strategic in what you're putting out and who you're marketing it to and how you're going to make money off of it. If art is a thing you do outside of your primary income source, just making and putting out in the world should be enough to create like this fulfillment that keeps you going. And that's like the meaning of art in humans' lives. Now, the meaning of art at a society level is a whole bunch of different kind of obfuscated claims about, not obfuscated. The meaning of art at a societal level is a whole bunch of claims as to what it does anecdotally without like many people having to prove that it's actually true.
Because there's no way to, unless enough people believe it.
Yeah, like if you had to walk into a museum, and you had to fill out a scorecard of how you're feeling and how inspired you're feeling, and then you walk out and you fill out an exit interview and you do a video, and then you run all that through AI and you get like facial recognition and emotional recognition technology and like kind of transcripts and like psychoanalyze these people, you could make the claim with data that like art is creating an impact on people's lives. But the story that gets told is we're spending money on this museum because it's good for the public and it inspires them. Mm-hmm. The reality is like most of the public doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. But that's a function of like society and the households of society, perhaps not, because context is so important. Not educating properly.
It's the programming in the algorithm that informs people's perspective on values that ultimately informs whether or not cultural production is important.
And that's perhaps why it's like knowing about it is a status symbol, because it's a way to kind of step aside from those algorithms in some capacity.
Yeah. I mean, if I open up someone that watches the Kardashians all day long's TikTok feed, I'm going to get a fundamentally different experience than if I open up like someone who's obsessed with trading penny stocks. Yeah. But there are those two archetypes of people, and they have a totally different worldview informed by their media consumption. And these silos of media consumption are getting more and more echo chambery. And
the bikini blondes on mine.
That has a lot to do with what you're searching for, bud.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I know. Jesus.
so
So
what does art mean in society?
yeah.
I think that's sense making you can only do retrospectively.
Well, we've had thousands of years to fucking
Well, it's meant different things
give us a taste, and
over time.
you are fucking on one, dude.
So I'm not like an art historian, but I've spent a lot of time in museums and reading about art and visiting gallery shows and stuff like that. I'm certainly not
Loose.
super informed in art history, but like if you go back to, like I remember I was in Athens and I visited this museum and it was all these artists making busts of famous philosophers and important individuals within like the hierarchy of society. And so art's purpose then was to hire an artist, pay for their living, to produce an artifact that creates awe amongst the people if they get to see it, or status amongst that person who financed it within their castle.
Wow. But
So
what about like the constants of, from the hand on the cave, capturing the human experience or capturing human emotion and communicating it in some kind of way.
sure, the hand on the cave was kind of out of utility, and it's only in looking back at it that we try to sense make what it means in the context of like society. But it was probably like, let's try to remember how many buffaloes we killed. Let's draw it on the wall, Or like, hey, it's a cold winter. You guys want to do something?
Dude, wow. So this is so funny because I always interpreted it as that hand on the cave as
This like informed, intelligent person saying, in 1,000 years, people are going to remember me because I put a hand on the cave. No fucking way, dude.
I know. Now that you mention it like that, I'm like, yo, I really am a little bit naive, but man.
And then, okay, so let's fast forward to the zombie formalists of like the mid 2010s.
Our homies.
The zombie formalists, for those that don't know, are like these artists that came right out of high-end art schools, Yale's MFA program, Cooper Union. They had a bunch of students. What's that?
I said all went to high school here in LA at Harvard Westlake.
They went to college, got some debt or not. A gallerist like Zwerner or Gagosian comes along and says, hey, we super value your art. You're going to sell it all to us. You're going to have a nice little chunk of change, but you're exclusively selling through us. And we're going to bid up your price, and we're going to create a financial instrument that wealthy individuals can use to dodge taxes.
Dude.
And they were a pawn in that game. And their prices have collapsed subsequently. So those artists that were selling $250,000, $1 million paintings are not going to auction anymore and or are getting really bad results. And that was a
short view of it, because I think like in the long term, that movement and that moment will eventually be respected as its own kind of thing that was pushing, certain boundaries of art or whatever. And yes, like it got inflated because like the networks of those artists also were like fucking David Geffen and shit.
Let's not forget though that, let me ask you a question before I make this statement. Use AI?
Do I?
Yeah.
Like a savage, like an addict, like a crackhead.
So similar to the way media algorithms are programming your brain and informing your worldview, AI is informing like what you focus on, what you think is important, what it thinks is important, right? It's got its own algorithm in a black box that kind of tells you, like if you ask it a question, there's 1,000 ways it could answer, but it's answering a particular way based on its training.
Yeah, to fluff my ego.
So fast forward decades or 2 decades or 5 decades, in theory, humans are going to be relying on what AI tells them was important. And I don't know if AI is going to look at the the zombie formalism era as anything more than like a financial instrument that a couple clever people use to hide some money.
Well, as long as there's people like me who will bang the drum of its importance and irrelevance to the as a financial instrument, like that should mess up the algorithm.
Should. Yeah. I hope that there's more
But
people
what?
like you. Although, like, are you holding a bunch of zombie formalist abstract paintings that,
No, I'm
okay. I was just making sure you're not talking your book.
yeah, I'm always talking my book. I would buy more, and I would buy more because I do like what's that Silicon Valley term that Peter Thiel says he is or whatever, like
Non-consensus.
no, there's another one. Like you go against the
Yeah. What is Peter? Contrarian.
the contrarian. Thank you. So like I like being a contrarian.
Contrarian, like a contrarian makes outsized returns because they have a unpopular point of view.
Yes.
And that seems like you're either super informed or you're a degen gambler.
Probably,
So,
probably more of the latter.
right?
Dude, I love beer. I love gambling. I love Zin, Pigs and Bikinis, and Al Bundy.
Just an American dude.
I'm a fucking American dude.
Just a white American dude living in LA selling turf.
Talking to artists.
Fuck yeah, dude. You're the man.
So like I really, I like anytime I start seeing something get hated on, that's when like all my senses like my spidey senses like start tingling, and that's when I want to start jump to its defense, like Nickelback even like a couple of years ago, like they're coming back, but when they were really hated on like in 2018-19.
That's when you started listening to it all the time, driving around convertible Miatas in LA.
Exactly. Well, I'm new to LA, but yeah, I was in Houston then.
Driving a convertible Miata. I see you in a convertible Miata in your Topper's Turf gear, and that's just
funny.
That's like that's an identity that I think your customers can get behind.
No, 1,000%. Here in Beverly Hills, ripping around.
If you show up in your gear and your fucking Miata with Topper's Turf on the side of it in Beverly Hills, you would kill it.
Dude, it's so funny. I really
and talk about appealing to your customers. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. Also, like I'm like zany, so I appeal to like very eccentric people. But like I need to like hone it in a little bit. I'm trying to be back to this whole customer thing. Like I need to what's the word, like whitewash myself a little bit. Like I can't be too eccentric, which is what I've been doing.
Yeah. If you crave being eccentric and you're not allowed to do it in your current environment, you're probably in the wrong environment.
Yeah, that could be.
Because like when I'm not allowed to like fully express myself for business or social reasons, I end up just shutting down.
It comes out of your ears. I understand. Yeah. It's just like in the same way, like how medications have side effects, because like for whatever reason, like it's just the vibration. Like yo, you fucking you're taking this, but fucking it's causing that. That's similar. And like man, okay, so wow, we dug into a lot, but let me just bring it back to the art thing. So what was the path that started leading to your current project in Art City? Like, when did that all start? And you made some bucks in advertising, and then you decided like this was a project you wanted to do? Like,
I think I made some bucks in advertising. I made some bucks in advertising. I wanted to step out on my own and see like, can I be a solo entrepreneur using the skill set I learned to start like a direct to consumer business? And this was like 2013, 14, 15. And at the time, I was working as a marketing growth hacker at a venture studio, and I was launching my own little business. And when I was thinking through like what are the products that work best online, it's things that are highly visual, that once your customer, every time I do my thumbs up, it thumbs up, things that are highly visual, things that people want to tell a story about as soon as their friends ask them about the object, something people prominently display, ideally something with high margin. And
What would be an example of something like that? Like a Dyson air purifier?
art.
Oh, okay. But art
So
does
I went through this whole like process of trying to figure out like, am I going to sell socks, or am I going to sell, canned water, or am I going to sell like whatever it is? And I arrived at like the best solo business for me to build that I could make a couple $100,000 a year off of and not work super hard and have a nice lifestyle was become an artist. And that was like my entrepreneurial ad tech brain at the time of uh, like 2013 through 15. And so the 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 name The Most Famous Artist was really just a lucky moment where I Googled like how to become a famous artist while I was going through this like exercise of trying to build a business for myself. And I realized no one had claimed the title of the most famous artist, but many aspire to be the most famous artist. So I bought the domain, got the Instagram, and then started on this process. And the project evolved like literally every quarter was a new series, a new experiment, a new worldview, and it was all just super iterative. And I had no plan other than just keep the momentum up and keep moving. And it went through a world of like direct to consumer art sales where I was selling flea market canvases with contemporary themes on top of them for a few $1,000s direct to consumer, to starting a mural business, to starting to open up studio space leases for other artists, to building an art collective, to building an online community, to doing NFT projects, to building in the AI space. And through this decade of experience, arrived at this new, what I think is a big opportunity, which is how do you create spaces and places that inspire people to live more creative lives and give them the freedom, time, and space to actually do their practice? And some macro trends that are happening is people can work from anywhere. They can sell objects online. That was proven by the pandemic. With kind of what's happening in politics and big cities right now. Big cities are becoming less livable. They're more expensive. Crime is on the rise. The tax basis is leaving. And so this is like a forward view of saying, maybe the most creative people and the folks that are creating the most cultural production need new spaces and new lifestyles in order to continue to do their thing outside of the pressure cooker that is the American capital system. And where can that happen? It can happen in small towns because assets are undervalued. There's demographic collapse going on. These places were once amazing to live, but they got decimated by globalization. And the reality of it is, yes, I'm doing it altruistically, but I'm also doing it in a very self-serving way. I want this for myself, and I also recognize it's a gigantic real estate arbitrage.
enormous.
And the thing about being an artist is like, being an artist is kind of like being a pro athlete. You're only as good as your last game. And if you blow out your knee or you get caught, doing something you shouldn't be doing and your career is over, if you didn't save your money and invest it wisely, you're fucked. So similarly, artists can go out of fashion really quickly, or they could get tired of making work, or they could lose their studio space. It's like, how do you, as an artist, build a 401k? How do you build assets and equity in yourself so that once it's time to retire, you're not forced to paint until you die?
Dude, it's so interesting. It ties into like our previous interview, but there's almost like this bleeding heart necessity to be a victim as an artist, where you're taking back the agency uh, for art in some kind of way.
The artists I can't stand at all are those artists that take their shit so seriously and think the work they're creating is so important that they're disconnected from reality and delusional in a way that's like offensive.
And what defines that delusion to you?
I mean, making a canvas that has some paint smeared about it is not solving world hunger. It's not really making an impact at all.
So are they just playing a game to appeal to a gallery, to appeal to a collector, to self-serve themselves, but to go down in history perhaps, or just needing to communicate something with inside of them that is, that needs to come out in the same way I said, my freak flag maybe can't fly as much in turf as I want it to.
Um, restate that. Just I kind of had a brain fart. I had something going and then I lost it.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is like, that those artists really do believe that they are trying to push humanity forward, or that they have something inside of them that needs to get communicated, and maybe that's on the canvas or in this sculpture, or are they just playing a game that they are following art history in order to appeal to a gallerist, in order to appeal to a collector? And I'm listening.
I think it depends on their history and where they're coming from. So if you grow up wanting to be an artist and you're following art news headlines, it's all about the next most expensive piece of art to sell, or this amazing thing a person did and why they're so amazing. And those motives are indoctrinated into individuals who participate in the art institution and go and get their painting degree or go to an MFA program. And they're kind of stuck in that way of thinking, and the soft like bosom or the soft belly of the art world that raises these kids up into thinking that they can be the next Picasso is what creates that delusion. Now, there's a whole other world of people who discover perhaps art in their late career, perhaps do it part-time as a hobby, perhaps are fine not getting invited to the Gucci Gala at LACMA. And those are the people that are actually more interesting to me. And that doesn't really, though, that group of people are the folks I'm hoping live in the small towns I am aiming to revitalize. And it's that group of people that are actually driving like cultural production at scale and actually moving the needle on what the pulse of humanity is, far better than those artists that are part of the institution that are raised up, who are spending their time responding to critics of the industry and patrons of the industry. Because when critics and patrons are your barometer for whether or not you're doing a good job, you're going to be incentivized and aligned with particular outcomes, which is validation through galleries and museums and auction results.
Yeah. But dude, that's the game. You're playing.
That's the game if you want to play it. I mean, here's the reality of it, though. I think the artists that are going to be paid attention to in their 60s and 70s by the art canon are those outsider artists who have nothing to do with the fine art world right now.
Okay, that's a very bold claim, because it basically like turns everything on its head, and the fine art world is like a multi-billion-dollar kind of machine. So like
the fine art world needs to find new stories of credible artist individuals that have a long history of making work that's high quality in order to create the next market that they can make money off of. And so my thesis is I can make work from my late 20s all the way to my 50s, so for another decade, and not care about the fine art world, And then somewhere in my 50s, the fine art world's going to come knocking and say, hey, we're going to pay you a multi-million-dollar salary to produce works. We're going to give you gallery shows at every Gagosian gallery. We're going to control your market, and you are our newest equity that we're going to bring to the market and make a buck off of. And I'll be trading my 20 years of work in order to get that outcome, unattached to that outcome right now, but knowing that it's a high probability that that happens if I set my career up right now.
Yeah, but that also requires a certain narrative, and following certain rules, because and that narrative is what you are contributing or have contributed to that fine art world and art history, in its.
I don't know if you actually have to contribute to the fine art world and art history. You have to contribute to like cultural movements that in retrospect were deemed important by the fine art world.
Okay,
So in the future, like 10 years from now, selfie culture and the absurdity of headlines and Instagrammable experiences and selling literal flea market trash as fine art might be looked upon as like very clever. Right now, it's looked upon as fucking kitsch and like not that cool. And I'm speaking of myself. That's the kind of shit I make. But like 10 years from now, it could be awesome. But I'm not compromising what I'm making right now to fit into the fine art world, knowing that it's a trap, and keeping my optionality and my revenue generation open so that I can keep making what I care about instead of conforming to what the critics care about and what the patrons care about.
but then you're like risking not being able to, be appreciated in the canon of art history.
Nobody, like very few people actually get appreciated. If that's your goal, you're going to fail.
Wow. Yeah.
Like I said that super early in my career, like I'm making art because I'm creating a legacy.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That was so uninformed and so retarded of me to say.
Wow. Wow.
No, I'm making art because it like allows me to take ideas that are in my head and make them and get self-satisfaction out of having like made something tangible with my time, delivering joy to myself, sharing it with others. And then I go about my day and do all the other shit I got to do. Pay my taxes and pay my bills and clean my house and do all the other things.
So what about, where do the artists who, are trading, who are going through this system and, are 10 years, 20 years in, and they're not at the Gagosian level, they're at, they're making 20K per work or 10K per work.
Which is a lot of money, by the way.
No, I know it is. They can't even afford their own works. And like, they seem to be playing the game of, hey, I'm following these rules, for this long-term win.
I'm seeing more and more of them burn out or churn out because the costs of playing the game keep going up. So there's many artists that I know that had big studios and had a practice, and at one time were making good money, and then over time they fell out of favor. Their studio costs and team costs and material costs stayed the same, and they more or less are broke now, but had a successful art career.
Yeah.
And I fear that that's going to be the outcome for many such artists that don't play a longer term game, focusing on a whole bunch of different revenue channels and not calling themselves an artist and living like an artist so that they can be an egotistical, self-centered asshole that the world doesn't need.
Bro.
Like to say you're an artist and to like think that your shit is important is so fucking crazy to me.
Wow.
Like the artist makes the work, the viewer finishes it in Duchamp's world. And if the viewer isn't saying your shit is great and you're still making it and you claim to be the best thing ever, you might be delusional and you might need to go to therapy.
Every artist needs to go to therapy. like, but so what? Isn't that delusion like so important for the artist? Like, or
I think it's a dangerous game to play. I think delusion can work to your advantage in edge cases, but it can also create a bright star that burns out prematurely.
and
Like
more pain.
one thing I'm working on right now with the Albuquerque school system is like a business of art class or like presentation for kids that are in high school that want to make art their career. And so they do this thing once a year where they get all these students to bring their art into the auditorium or wherever it is, the gymnasium. They allow the public to come in and kids sell their art and they get the space for free and they probably got the materials from free from school and they made their shit at home so they don't have to like deal with renting a studio. And what that's creating is an experience that gets these kids hooked at like, oh, I can make things and sell them. But it doesn't give them the flavor of reality, which is art is a business. There's a whole bunch of expenses that you incur. There's a whole bunch of time that goes into it. And finally, there's what you make from it. And number has to be positive in order for you to have a career. And so like just like simply teaching that and saying you don't need to study all the grades. You just need to take your point of view, get a practice, make some stuff and sell the stuff. And if you're making money, you're a success. You don't need to be a fine artist to have that experience of having thoughts in your brain, putting them out into the world and getting value back for that. Because that, in the same way that making your first dollar online is intoxicating, making your first thing, putting it out the world and getting $1 back for it is intoxicating, and it can completely reorient your trajectory.
Jesus. Okay, we don't have much time left, but we got to talk about how so back to your real estate long-term play, and I also just want to say that like on the record here, one of my art dreams, aside from having an artist residency, similar to yours, is to build a enormous colossus, maybe like out on the water of. The dream is San Francisco Bay, but off Chesapeake Bay or out in the water, like the Statue of Liberty, but with a contemporary art piece. And I would love to collaborate with you on that one day, dude. Something fucking that's enormous and just out there.
Let's do it. You bring the money. I got the studio.
Dude, exactly. Working on it. Okay, so back to you. It's on the record now. You're working with me on that.
You got it. So back to me about what? We got to wrap this up.
Oh, my bad. Yo, so you fucking wind up out in New Mexico. You want to build this, goddamn, you have this long-term land arbitrage, but like, how did the idea come to be? And like, what is the genesis of this? And then tell me about it now.
Yeah, the quickest and easiest way to explain it is like after a decade of making art, I was focused on what am I doing in 3 months? What am I doing in 6 months? Do I have a gallery show lined up for next year? That was a grind that didn't allow me to think long term. I went to Marfa in 2019 and I saw what Donald Judd did over the course of like 40 years, which is take this Western Texas town that was an old military base that was more or less defunct, buy some key infrastructure, start hanging out there, start bringing his collector friends, and completely change the landscape from $80 a square foot to like many hundreds of dollars a square foot on single family homes, buy up all the key infrastructure, get folks like Rick Rubin to come down and hang out like literally in the middle of nowhere, and thought that's a cool play. And long term, that's what we need more of. There's like 10,000 or more small towns under 10,000 people in America that are all going to evaporate if we don't backfill the population decline with young, creative people. It's really an experiment in like, what is the Dunbar's number of people that show up as anchor tenants that take a place from 0 to 1 culturally, that increase the quality of life in a way that allows for the coastal elites to make some sacrifices but still feel fulfilled in the place they're living. I don't know if the place I'm doing this right now is the right place long term. I'm still kind of navigating that. I'm 5 years in, have invested lots of money, have learned a lot of things. I'm here most of the time. If you ask me if it's working, I'd say kind of. There's the real challenge is like not servicing transient visitors, but making this place a destination where people want to come and live. And I haven't quite cracked that nut. I've had some people move here and live here. It's a lovely place to live, but it's like a big sacrifice until we get the wine bar and the cheese shop and the jazz lounge and the, all like the steakhouse and all the things that make life worth living. Yeah. And I'm doing lots of things, trying my hand at, I run this big studio. It's a whole bunch of like really creative individuals that are specialized in a whole bunch of things, from AI to design to 3D work to fabrication to building to like all like everybody in the team is more or less a loose federation of experts. I go out and win big projects. Those pay for everybody's kind of time and energy, and we do these big things collectively.
Wow.
I'm experimenting with like new media and publishing stuff this next year. Like, how do I show up and share my experience and lessons learned in a way that creates value for myself and others? And what you'll notice through all of that is I haven't talked at all about making art objects.
Oh, I believe me, I've noticed.
Like I'm gonna, and I make art objects, but I don't want to feel obligated to make and sell art objects to live my life.
Word. So, like, it sounds like an extraordinary candidate for government, help in some kind of way. The federal government should want to throw big zaddy Trump wants to build new cities. Like,
yeah, it's on brand. Okay, here's another thing. Back to the billionaire collectors that are emerging in the K-shaped economy.
Yeah.
What is something that hasn't been built in the last, like, let's call it 100 years?
New cities.
That billionaires would love to put their names on. New cities. No one's built a new city in, like almost 100 years.
Many moons.
And so I'm intentionally positioning myself as like the new city guy, the big art guy.
That one out in Silicon Valley that they're trying to do or something.
California Forever.
Yeah, they're getting.
And that's a top-down thing where they buy everything and they come in and they impose their worldview. Balaji Srinivasan, who's the network state guy's also got the network school out in like a special Singapore region, or region in Singapore. There's a lot of this happening because the realization is that like our current infrastructure and governments and the way cities were built does not service the future. Think about like the things that are coming: vertical takeoff and landing, automated cars, smart cities, like prefab construction, walkable cities. No one's going to own a car. Like, the world needs to be reconfigured in the atom space for those experiments to take place. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be surprised if I do all these experiments on small town revivals as the most famous artist and end up like working for BlackRock as their new city guy.
Schwartzman, if you're listening, my dude.
Because that would be a sick job. And in a world where like no one has a job, I would love to be the new city guy at BlackRock.
I feel Yo, I'll be your apprentice, my Jiggy. Oh my God. And so, like, what? Oh my God, dude. So much to think about. So, how does art tie into what the hell you've been building then?
Art. So being an artist and making art,
Mhm.
you got to get some more turf.
Yeah.
Get some more turf, and then I'll finish this statement.
Okay, great. All right. So great talk. Well, no. So no.
I want to finish the statement.
Right.
Yeah.
Finish the statement, and then we got to wrap up the show.
Okay. So art ties in that to be an artist
Mm-hmm.
is to have a point of view,
Mm-hmm.
to make things,
Mm-hmm.
put that output out in the world,
Yes.
and then defend it. And that whole chain of events requires intentionality.
Okay.
And so I would argue that anyone that is living an intentional life is an artist,
Okay.
whether or not they put the title on themselves. And I think becoming an artist and practicing art taught me valuable skills that I apply to every other area of my life, from when I'm in the kitchen and trying to make dishes more artfully, to being on site with a general contractor and saying, let's do this more artfully, to interacting with my whole team. So being an artist is living intentionally, having a point of view, demonstrating practice, putting it out in the world, and defending it. And so that is the through line of
Wow.
my whole experience.
And that fundamentally like adds value or adds something to the art city.
Being an artist also is a title that gives you a lot of latitude to do what you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to think really big and think on the bleeding edge, and maybe even cross the line of the bleeding edge without coming across as so crazy that you should be institutionalized.
Wow.
And so when a big brand or a business approaches me, I say I pitch the craziest shit because I can.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a presidential candidate that came to me and said, we're running, they were an independent and they were like, we're running for president. What's your plan? I was like, let's make you into a fake superhero, dog. Let's like stage a thing where like a car flips over and then like your shirt bursts open and you've got a superhero thing on and you go and you flip the stage car and Jake Paul's there filming it and like people start to question whether you're like mutant or not, and then you win the presidential election.
Wow.
Now, a marketing agency can't pitch something like that.
Yeah, it's too bananas.
It's too bananas. But an artist at the most famous studio,
Yep.
If you're coming to us, you're asking for the crazy shit.
All right. Well, now I really got to go. That was amazing. I could talk to you for hours, and we got to do an episode number 2.
Okay. So send this over to your really bad clippers.
AI.
Your AI clippers.
I will. All right, dude. Thank you so much again, Maddie. Incredible catching up.
For sure. Lovely to see you. Peace.
Great seeing you.